All right, welcome to the explainer. So you're building on AWS, and you've hit that big question, the one that can make or break your app's success. Which database do I actually use?
And it's a critical question because, AWS doesn't give you just one or two choices. We're talking about an entire toolkit, over 15 purpose-built databases. You've got relational, key value, graph, time series, you name it, it's probably there.
But all that choice, well, it leads to a classic problem, right? The paradox of choice. It's so easy to get a little overwhelmed and just default to what you've always used, even if it's not the best fit for what you're building now. So, yeah, how do you choose the right one? How do you cut through all that noise? Well, don't worry, we're going to walk through a really simple framework to help you navigate all these options and feel confident in your decision. Okay, so here's the core idea, the most important mental shift you can make. It's moving away from that old one-size-fits-all database mentality. The real best practice today? It's all about picking the right tool for the specific job. And, database expert Mark Weaver put it perfectly. He said, you might find that a mix of different databases works better than just forcing a square peg into a round hole. It's not about finding one database to rule them all anymore. It's about using the right combination to build something better. So where do we start? Well, before you even think about logging into the AWS console, the first step is actually looking inward at your application. You've got to get crystal clear on what it actually needs. And AWS actually has a great little framework for this. Think of it like a checklist. You want to look at 4 key things. First, your business goals. Then, your data needs. What does your data look like? Third, your operational needs, like how you're going to scale. And finally, of course, your performance and security requirements. Okay, so once you've thought through those needs, you're going to come to a major fork in the road. And this is probably the most fundamental choice you'll make. Are you going with a relational SQL database or a non-relational NoSQL database? So let's start with the one most of us probably learned first, relational databases, SQL. These are all about structure, organization. Think neat tables with rows and columns. You have to define the schema, the rulebook basically, up front. That spreadsheet analogy is perfect. Everything has its specific, defined place. And then you've got the other side of the coin, NoSQL. These are built for pure flexibility and incredible scale. They use different models like documents or key value pairs, and they don't have that rigid, predefined schema. The file folder analogy is great here. Each folder can hold different kinds of documents, and you can just add new types as you go. And that difference in structure, it totally changes how they grow. A SQL database usually scales up. It's called vertical scaling. You just make the server bigger and beefier, more CPU, more RAM. But a NoSQL database, it's designed to scale out. That's horizontal scaling. You just add more servers to the group. And when you're talking about massive scale, that can be way more efficient. Okay, this brings us to a really crucial trade-off. See, SQL databases give you what's called strong consistency with a model known as ACID. This guarantees that your transactions are totally reliable. Super important for, say, a banking app. NoSQL, on the other hand, often goes for eventual consistency with a model called BASE. It prioritizes being available and fast, which is perfect for apps where being always on is the most important thing. So let's say you've decided that NoSQL is the way to go for a particular job. Well, the journey isn't over. In fact, this is where it gets really interesting, because now you get to choose from a whole family of different purpose-built NoSQL databases. Let's do a quick tour. And this table just shows that purpose-built idea perfectly. Every type of NoSQL database is optimized for a specific kind of job, right? So need crazy fast lookups for things like shopping carts or user sessions? That's a job for a key value store like DynamoDB. Building a social network with friends and followers, a graph database like Neptune is built for exactly that. Tracking data from IoT devices, well, that's a perfect use case for a time series database like TimStream. Okay, so all this leads us to a really important modern best practice. Instead of trying to make one database do everything, the idea is to use several different specialized databases, all within the same application. There's a cool name for this, polyglot persistence. It literally means using many languages to store your data. Let's make this real. Imagine we're building a social media app from scratch.
How would we use this polyglot persistence idea?
Well, you wouldn't just pick one database and call it a day. For user profiles and all their posts, you'd want something flexible, like a document database. Amazon Document DB is perfect for that. Then, for the actual social graph, who follows who, who's friends with whom, that's a job for a graph database, like Amazon Neptune. And for that super fast real-time feed, you'd use an in-memory cache like Amazon Elasticache. See? 3 different jobs, 3 different purpose-built tools.
All right, let's take another common example. What if you're building an IoT app, pulling in data from thousands of sensors every second? Again, you'd use a mix. For that constant flood of time-stamped sensor data, a time series database like Amazon TimeStream is the no-brainer. It's built for exactly that. But what about the information about each device? You know, its ID, its location, its current status. For that, you need super fast lookups, which is a perfect job for a key-value store like Amazon DynamoDB. Okay, so how do you take all this and apply it to your own projects? Let's boil it all down into a simple toolkit, a set of questions you can ask yourself every single time. So the next time you're starting a new project, just run down this list. Ask yourself, how structured is my data really? What's more important for this piece of the app? Bulletproof consistency or being available no matter what? How is this thing going to scale, up or out? What's the main job of this data? Is it for relating things, counting, caching? And what are my latency needs? The answers to these questions will literally guide you to the right choice.
And I want to end with this last thought from Mark Weaver, because it's so important. He says not to fall into the same old routine. Just because you've always used one type of database doesn't mean you should keep using it without thinking.
And that really brings us to the final question, the one you should take with you. Are you choosing your database based on habit, or are you choosing it based on the job it needs to do? Making that one simple shift in your thinking, that's the real key to unlocking all the power and flexibility that these modern databases have to offer. Thanks for watching.